Welcome to Pondering Psalms. Today, Curt and I are going to take a look at Psalm 128. And so join us as we ponder this psalm. And also, there's a little special tip on a game that you can play with your friends and family. Well, I'm here with my good friend,
Kurt Austin, and my good friend,
David Mullins. And we're glad that you're joining us as we take a look and ponder Psalm 128. So how are you doing, Kurt?
Hey, I'm doing great. And since I'm, following the advice of the psalm, my wife is flourishing. My children are all around the table having a good time.
Flourishing like what?
I don't know. This psalm was weird. I could see the advantage of it, but I read it a few times this week, and it's just like, really, that's it? This is the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to you giving me great insight as to why it is that I'm walking into Jerusalem on my way up to the festival, and it's important for me to know that if I fear the Lord, my wife will do great, and my kids will be happy around the table.
Well, isn't that what you want?
Yeah, my kids are out of the house, so it seems like
Well, but I know you, and I know your family, your kids will gather around your table, even though they're out of the house.
We were supposed to all get together last night and have game night, but my wife and I have not felt well, so we had to call it off. But we would have had everybody in the house last night. We've all got our COVID shots. We're all fine. We'll end up getting Delta, I'm sure, at some point, but we were all going to get together because we do. You're right. I mean, we do. We love to hang out, but let's talk about it. Let's talk, because I've got, my kids don't watch this, so I can talk about them open and honestly. They're not going to care.
They're not going to care.
Yeah, no, I think well, let's go ahead and jump into it, because I think it does have a lot to think about.
I think so. And in the New Living Translation, this translation we're using, it starts out with how joyful are those who fear the Lord. And I've said for years that joy and happiness are really two different things. Mm-hmm. Happiness is really based on what's happening. And so, it comes and it goes. Things are going well, things aren't. But joy is a little different because it kind of sticks with you. Even in those bad times, you might not be happy, but you can still have that sense of joy. And it says, joyful are those who fear the Lord. And there's one of your favorite words talking about the Lord, Kurt, fear.
Well, I love that it's taught me a lesson as we've been reading the Psalms, because it's repeated, right? That's the awe. It's the living in a state where you are respecting God. It's not as we've said multiple times. It's not fear like afraid. It's fear as in awe and respect and honor. So when you're doing that. It kind of defines it right after that, right? Those who fear the Lord, all who follow his ways. Yeah, that's really the bottom line.
It is. And I think it's a good distinction because, as I reflect on this, not everyone, even those who say they follow Jesus, are actually following God's ways. We're not always real good at, discernment. We're not always good at assessing what God is calling us to. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have in our mind what we want, and we can get it ourselves. We don't have to rely on the Lord. Yeah. So we follow our own ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and that I saw this week, a meme, all of life is about a meme, and the best memes really give us wisdom. But one of them was,
it was the best of memes and it was the worst of memes.
And it was a statement that, for God so loved the entire world. So why do we think that we don't have to? Right? That he gave his only begotten son, the entire world, not just a subsection of the world, not just a little bit of it. And yet when we follow our own ways, we like to just pick and choose.
Yeah.
right. Those people that we love, that those people groups that we honor. And, you know, when we were doing our trip to, when we were going to Italy and we were working with the refugees that were coming across the Mediterranean and landing from the northern coast of Africa, and were landing in Sicily. Shane Bennett, who has joined us on some of our calls over at different times, he said he knew a woman who actually had a list of and pictures of all the people that were part of the 9/11 bombing and helping do that. And she prayed every day that they would come to know Jesus.
Mm. Mm.
Wow. Yeah. And it was you had to stop and think about that for a minute, because he said, because she believes that Jesus is the answer into their lives. And she didn't have, yes, she felt sorry that everything had happened, but she didn't hold them in contempt. She held them in love.
Mm.
Well, that's the way of the Lord.
Yeah.
Not our way.
And really, when you think about it, you know, we can hold them in love because we know that they have gotten on a wrong path or a wrong way. Mm-hmm. And what I you know, I've used this illustration before. You know, you've done like those great big mazes, you know, mm-hmm. and you come to that place where you can go this way or that way. But you have no idea if on down the line there's going to be a dead end.
Yeah, yeah.
And you might have to retrace. And so what I try to do when I do those is I'll put the pencil right at the decision point, and then I'll try to follow with my eye or with your finger, trying to see
where it goes.
How far. Yeah. But if it's a really big maze, you can't do that. And so you go this way, and what that means is that you can never go down this way. So you have to make that choice. And one of the things about God's ways is sometimes God's ways does not look very desirable. It's the other way that looks desirable. Like Adam and Eve. If you look at that passage, it said that, you know, they saw the fruit and it looked good and it was desirable. Mm-hmm. And so it's very easy to not follow God's ways, even though you might say, hey, I'm following God's ways.
Yeah.
Because loving the terrorist does not look like the way that we would, right. That's not the way we usually go. Makes no sense
whatsoever. Yeah.
And so, and not to belabor this, but I think it's a very important, verse 1 is extremely important because everything else flows from it.
Right.
And you might say,
and not just verses 2 through 6.
Right.
Everything else.
Everything flows from it.
Flows from that. Yes.
So when you're looking at scripture and it's like, well, gosh, my life isn't reflecting this. The question is, have I really committed all of my ways to him? Yeah. Do I really fear the Lord? I mean, those are the questions you start asking. And when I ask myself those same questions, I have to answer a lot of times, no. Mm-hmm. I love myself.
When I think about you answering those questions, I have to say no. He is so lost. Speaking of the maze metaphor, let's just tie it back in. For anybody who's watching this, if you want to hear Dave give a really good example of that, watch this last week's sermon at stpaul.umc or umc.org, because he talks about that maze. What is it? What's that?
stpaulbloomington.org. Actually, if you go to live.stpaul.life.
Okay. Or look it up on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
That would probably be better because I have no idea when people are going to be watching this. So look it up on YouTube.
But he does a whole thing on his sermon about the maze. See, Dave, I watched your sermon.
I guess you did. Yeah. I thought I could slide that in here without.
He just keeps using the same stuff.
I know.
It was brilliant. It was really a great illustration about this point exactly.
Yeah.
So all right.
And so all the rest of this really flows. And so if you're not following his ways, if you're just kind of living life by the seat of your pants and not really doing any sort of discernment or appraisal of what God is calling you to, I'm hoping that this will encourage you. The rest of this will encourage you, because this is what, at least the psalmist and what God speaking through the psalmist says, will happen to those who fear the Lord. They're joyful. And verse 2, they enjoy the fruit of their labor. Fruit of their labor. Sorry.
Well, that's verse 3 and 4, right?
It is, yeah.
That's the end of verse 3. You will enjoy the fruit of your labor. And I think it's important, as we're talking about this, is that we reflect on the definition of that. Does it mean, like, how joyful and prosperous you will be? Does that mean that your bank account is going to be overflowing? No. Right? It doesn't, because you got to go back up to section B, or part 2 of verse 1, all who follow his ways. The ways are different. If we're wanting to follow our ways, then we want to make sure we get the pay raise. We want to make sure we get the good year-end review. We want to make sure that we get all of those things. So the fruit of our labor, that work that we do, whether that's at work or at home, is not what we would normally choose to be the prosperous way. Check that box and say, this is what it should look like.
And we know folks, of folks, they'll say, you know what, they're very rich, but they're not necessarily prosperous.
Yeah. Or joyful.
Or joyful. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you define it in a American 21st century way of, this is what it means, look around.
Yeah.
Look at folks that have more than what you do. Are they joyful? Do they feel prosperous? No, they're scrapping for even more. They're like, hey, I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So this really is about a much deeper prosperity and a much deeper joy than what anything of this on this earth can provide.
Yeah. You want to talk about verse 3?
Yeah, I don't. I wonder how my wife would read this.
That's a great question. Anita's downstairs. Let me go get her. Hey, Anita, what's your fruitful grapevine?
No. It says your wife. So when my wife reads this, it specifically is talking to the person that has a wife.
Well, let me. As I was reading this is what I thought. I'm not a wife, but I'm going to give some insight. Again, it's talking to the person who has a wife. So that would be me.
Yeah.
And if I am following the ways of the Lord, then I'm going to be treating her with respect. I'm going to be honoring her in every way. I'm going to be making sure that she's taken care of in a way, not financially. That's not the benchmark, right? It's, am I listening? Am I focused? Am I caring? Am I supporting? Am I nurturing? Those are the things, at least from our relationship, the thing that I've learned over 36 years of marriage is, 37 years of marriage, is that those are the things that really do help her to grow and to feel loved and nurtured. And if I'm doing those things, when I'm doing them well, when I'm honestly centered in on Christ, centered in on the ways of the Lord, she benefits from that.
Yeah. And over, I've watched, several of those 37 years. And the one thing I've come away with is that your wife is just a saint. All she puts up with.
She's told me the same thing. And I don't think she means it the way I thought she meant it.
Oh, but this is, if you look at verse 4, I'm going to swing back here. That is the Lord's blessing for those who fear him. Love it. It has this. So, those who fear the Lord, those who fear the Lord,
bookends.
What is it? It has to do with really your life, your relationships, your wife, your spouse, your children, vigorous young olive trees, not just young olive trees, not just olive trees, but vigorous young olive trees, and a fruitful grapevine, not just a grapevine, but a fruitful one. These were things that were wanted in that culture. This was huge. Yeah. And that is the Lord's blessing for those who fear him.
I love it.
Yeah.
And thank yeah, we're ready. Thank
Okay.
you so much for going through this with me, because honestly, as I read it this week, it was kind of like, yeah, it's okay. But now that we've landed on this, I love it.
My wife's family. They're older now. She's the youngest, very much youngest of several, and we used to go vacation for like a week. Get a great big house and everything. And there were so many stories of the grandkids and others telling people that they work with, hey, this is what we're doing, and they look at her and say, "Your whole family? Yeah. How many? Well, about 50. You guys can stand each other that long?"
Mm-hmm.
And there's her family was really formed. Most of the guys were pastors or former pastors or missionary and stuff, and so they really were trying to follow Jesus. And I always thought it was coming out in the way that they treated one another and their family. And there's so many families, it's like I can't even stand to be with my family. And so it was so foreign. And it gave them a chance to just say, well, we're really formed around God. And to us, it isn't a weird thing. We enjoy being together as family. They still do, but they're older and it makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah, it's just harder.
Yeah.
Well, and her family is now exploded. You got children, grandchildren,
Yes.
great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
Because of the ages. So you'd have to have a house that could, hold 150 people,
Yeah. And they're spread across the country now, where before it was kind of more contained in Indiana. Now it's actually, from coast to coast. So that's really the Lord's blessing for those who fear him. My family was not so much that way. So it was really cool for me to kind of join hers and be part of that.
We were together with our small group one night, and it was just a game night. There was nothing. It wasn't a Bible study. It wasn't a prayer meeting. It was just time together with our friends from the church. And we were playing. Have you ever played Fishbowl?
I think I have.
Where you have to sound out. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So our small group was playing Fishbowl. And this was when Emily first started dating. Emily's our daughter, middle child. And she was first dating her now husband. And they were studying together. And they really were studying. We've confirmed that they were not goofing around upstairs. They were studying. But our small group was meeting, and we were laughing and we were just in tears. We were laughing so hard because the Fishbowl game is so fun. And he told her later, Emily's now husband told her later, he said, I've never seen adults enjoy each other like that, where there was not drinking involved. There was not, there was not crude humor. There was just having fun together. Yeah. And it was because we had a central belief system. We had a central desire to love each other in the way God wanted us to love each other. And it reflected in a way that was foreign to him. You were talking about the family getting together. And I think when we are truly living in a way that we are honoring, following the ways of God, then it lives itself out in lots of ways. Now, does everybody get that? Does everybody then automatically go, that's what I want? That's and because of the way you lived, I know how to get there. No, that's a different conversation, a different topic. But certainly in reflecting that, if somebody sees that your household is fruitful, vigorous, prosperous in the way that you live, it may be foreign to them, but it's desirable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And for those of you who are interested, stick around until after the credits, and Curt will explain the rules to Fishbowl.
Yeah. I'd be happy to. Yeah.
One of the things before we move on,
that's hilarious.
Well, we have to remember this was a Psalm of Ascent. They were heading to Jerusalem. They were heading to Zion.
Yeah.
And this is one of the important pieces. The Lord continually bless you from Zion, because Zion represented the presence of God. They were actually making a journey toward God, and they were doing so with their families.
Right. It wasn't just some guy who just decided he's going there.
Yeah,
They would all pack up. They would all head that way.
And so this promise becomes very powerful because you're traveling there with your family and you're being reminded that all who follows his way will have that family that is blessed and is a blessing. And I love the verse 6. May you live to enjoy, not just to see, not just to encounter, but to enjoy your grandchildren. And may Israel have peace, because from Israel flows, like the peace of God. And now for us, Jesus represents the temple, and so it's, he is the presence of God, and his presence is in our lives. I mean, we don't have to make that journey to Jerusalem. Jesus is present in our lives if we want him to be and allow him to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I keep it. I don't know if it's reminiscent to me. Reminiscent? That's not the right way to say that. It reminds me of, remember the hymn, "We're marching to Zion"?
Oh yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching to Zion, the beautiful kingdom of God. I don't know. It's something about this week's, they've all been the Song of Ascent. They've all been kind of this, but I think the fact that it talks about this, let all who love the Lord. So I don't know if maybe this comes out of this, but
it might. Yeah. Or really maybe all of the Psalms of Ascent. Yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really helpful for me. I'll be honest.
And for me.
I read through this week and was like, this is a weird, it just didn't jive for me. And then being able to talk about it as we've learned over and over and over again, is when we talk about these things, the light bulb turns on.
Yeah.
We come to some kind of revelation where it's like, that's how that could apply. Really helpul. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
hey, let me end us, since you bring us in. Let me end with that if you are watching this, we want to encourage you to engage us in conversation. Leave a comment, share this with your friends if it's helpful for you at all. As we
even
are
if it's
learning,
not.
Even if it's not, just share. Just
share someone that you're thinking they really need to hear this. They really need to hear this.
Let me finish this, Dave. Stop interrupting me. I won't interrupt you. Okay. No. So join us with all of these, because every week we're reading the same psalm and then we talk about it at the end of the week. We also we have our own website, ponderingpassages.com. We have a blog. We have a interrupt me now. I mean, I'm at a
not to.
We have a podcast where you can find where we kind of dig in just a little bit more about what it is we're talking about. And we'd love for you to be a part of that. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, our own website. Join us, be a part of that conversation.
And nowhere at the same time. It's our new catch car. Everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
That's how it feels. And be a part of that. Follow along, and we'll talk to you then. All right, goodbye. Everywhere and nowhere. That is exactly right.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you just keep going through all the social things. It's like, oh wow.
Everywhere and nowhere.
Yeah.
All right. So do you want me to explain Fishbowl?
Yes, please explain the rules to Fishbowl for everyone who may be interested.
Fishbowl is a fantastic game. We have played it in settings with our daughter-in-law, or our daughter and our son-in-law's family. So it was just two families. We've played it with all of our kids, 8 of us. We've played it with church groups. We've played it. It's just it is a lot of fun.
How many people? I mean, is it 2 to 4, 4 to 12?
Well, you couldn't do it with 2. You're right. I mean, you would need like teams. Let me explain how it's played, and then you can kind of get a sense that you need several people to be involved. You can't just do 2 people. I don't think there's a limit, though.
Okay.
I don't think there's a limit on how. I mean, logistically, I think you can just do as much as you want. So what you do is you start with a hat or a fishbowl or a bowl in your kitchen, and you all get little slips of paper. And depending on how many people are involved, you may want to, if it's a smaller group, then you could give everybody 3 pieces of paper, and they write down something, anything. It can be. Okay. It can be a movie title. It could be a phrase. It could be a object. It could be, it can be anything. So for example, let's use the Harry Potter. Let's use Harry Potter as an example. We'll just say Harry Potter.
Okay.
That's what I write down, and I put it into the fishbowl. Fold it in half, put it in the fishbowl. Everybody puts theirs in the fishbowl, and then your teams. And we often will say women against men. Or these 2 married couples against these 2 married couples. I mean, something like that. And then what happens is that you do multiple rounds using the exact same pieces of paper. So the first round is I get the fishbowl and I reach in, I pull out a piece of paper and I open it up, and I have to do explaining. Remember the game match word, where you use other words to explain what it is without using that word. So I would say, like, I pull out Harry Potter and I would say wizard, movies, books, and somebody then on my team has to say what it is. They have to figure out from my clues what it is. And we have so many minutes, and so you try to get through as many as possible. Typically the first round is like 1.5 minutes for the entire team. And then once they get that, I hand the fishbowl to the next person. They open it, and then they have orange. And then they have to go fruit, round, citrus. And then somebody says orange. In the meantime, of course, everybody's yelling out 38 different options. Yeah. And it goes around until your time is up, and then you keep the ones that you got right. And then at the end of all the game, or that round, then you count up the number that you got right. At the end of the 1.5 minutes, you hand it off to the next team. They do theirs. So you do that until all the fishbowl is empty. Count it up. Each team gets us points based on how many they got right. The next round, you decrease the time a little bit. So maybe it's 1:15 minutes or 1 minute. And instead of
explaining
words, you use actions.
Okay.
And so no words. You can't use any words. And you use actions. And so if it's Harry Potter, then maybe I flip and switch, or what, you do some kind of thing, or an owl flying away, whatever. And it's really tricky. Like, how in the world do you do an action for an orange?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're squeezing it and then you pour it and you drink it, kind of a thing. And so you do that, and it's tricky. It's hard. Then the next one you use, I'm not getting this right. So the first one is words. Second one is actions. A next one is everybody has to keep their eyes closed.
Okay.
And then you do sounds. And so for like Harry Potter, it'd be easy. That's the theme music from the show.
Okay.
But what do you do for an orange? I mean, that's the tricky thing. So as you're writing, you want to be really challenging, but you also you hope you don't get orange, because you're really in trouble with that. There is a 4th round, and I don't remember what it is. I've blown, but the last one is where everybody's eyes are closed and you're doing sounds. And it's fun.
Yeah.
And the thing is the other team has their eyes open. And so, So if you can't get it, they're seeing, because nobody ever just puts their hands in their lap and makes a sound.
Yeah.
The person is waving arms and they're trying to gesticulate this action. The other one is action. It's an action. Anyway, I'll look it up. We'll post it. What the rules are for Fishbowl. But it is the funniest game we've ever played. You don't need anything but paper, pen, and a bowl of some sort, and it's challenging. It's funny. It's you learn a little bit about the people you're playing with, about their level of engagement. So I would encourage you to give that a shot. And, the other thing that you talked about, Dave, during this is that, getting the house together. We just scheduled our house for our family in January of this next year. And we will play Fishbowl when we're together, because it is a winner for our family.
All right. And now,
enjoy it.
Hopefully it can be a winner for your family as well.